what's that save in labor? What's that save in the safety aspect? One lost leg, one lost life. You can't put a price on safety.
Well, I know there's a lot of guys that are attending this show that if they didn't have to pick up a shovel, it would be worth a lot.
Yeah, your doctor bills, for a bad back.
Ladies and gentlemen, farmers, ranchers, and distinguished guests, thank you for listening to the Farm4Profit podcast, where we discuss the latest ideas, methods, trends, and techniques available to help your farm achieve higher levels of farm profitability. The Farm4Profit podcast is co-hosted by Tanner Winterhoff, the Iowa Bankerman, and David Whitaker, the Iowa Land Guy, where in tandem they will share their ideas and advice from industry experts. Thank you again for listening to the Farm4Profit podcast. Remember, if you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long. And now, here's Tanner and David.
Hey, listeners, welcome back to the Farm4Profit podcast. This is Tanner Winterhoff.
And this is David Whitaker.
We are here doing a profit show this week. So if you're new to the podcast, this will have a What's Working in Ag segment, followed by a general topic to help your farm achieve higher levels of profitability. But next week, Dave, we have a little bit more fun.
That's right. So there's two different styles of podcasts we do here, Farm4Profit, the number 4, and there's Farm4Fun. And remember, Tanner, if any of our listeners want to make a suggestion, they need to go to the same Farm, number 4, Profit, add an LLC to it, though. Farm4Profit, LLC at gmail.com. Email us a suggestion. We need lots of suggestions. We do lots of podcasts.
It's been fun getting those emails from you guys, so keep sending them. Also, if you have any good intro song suggestions, add those to that email that you send over. But thank you most for sharing us with your family and friends. We appreciate it. You're helping us grow, and we can get this message delivered to more people. Dave, who brought our listener review to us this week?
Well, one of our great partners, been a partner a long time, BW Fusion. They're the combining the best-in-class products along with BW 365 soil and tissue program, provide growers with the tools and resources necessary to identify limiting factors and address them accordingly in real time, with results focused on interventions. They're bringing the edge of the field, Tanner, to the center. That's what they're doing.
Yep, absolutely. And for a limited time, if you sign up 500 acres of the Meltdown and 401 microbial team, you get a free field in that 365 program. But our review this week was from Zach Kessler. He sent us an email, said, great podcast about the similarities of the 80s. So that was a recent one.
That was a good episode, too. And remember, now we're on Spotify. You can review us on Spotify, too.
Yep, not just Apple iTunes podcasts. Gosh, not just Apple Podcasts, but you can leave us a review on Spotify as well. So listeners, we appreciate you joining us. We appreciate you patronizing BW Fusion. Don't forget about Gearinghoff. They're head of the class no matter the crop. All right, so now it's time for a What's Working in Ag segment. And this, I thought, would be a neat approach for us to take for a segment like this because it saves lives, Corey. We have with us John Hennig from Sukup Manufacturing. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So what is your role at Sukup?
I'm the bin sales director. I cover the United States. I call on the different territory managers, ride with them throughout the year. Basically, any issues that come up, I also get involved in dealing with those also.
Yeah.
So you have the whole country.
The U.S.
Wow. It should be known that we are still at the National Farm Machinery Show down here with Sukup. So we have Sukup employees at our luxury.
Yeah, and all the cool stuff that's sitting here in the booth to walk around and go, oh, I didn't know we had that. I didn't know that was here. But we're specifically today, Corey, talking about a door. And that doesn't sound exciting when you just say
a door.
We're here to talk about a door, but it's exciting, isn't it, John?
It is.
Yeah. Why is it exciting?
Well, because it saves lives. It has the potential to do that. And getting into the story of how it came about, people forget to close their inner door panels, which is actually holding the structural integrity of the grain bin together. And they have the outer door shut, start filling the bin, don't realize the inner ones are open. What happens, they'll start leaking grain out the bottom door because it's not intended to take that kind of pressure.
Yeah. Right.
And what'll happen, curiosity gets in, why is it leaking there? They'll grab the door handle and open it, and they can be covered up and buried in grain. And it has happened several times throughout the country that we've heard about, and we want to address that. So we developed a door that assures your inner door panels are latched before your outer door can be secured.
It'll be fun to try and describe this on the podcast to how it works, but it mechanically won't shut unless those inner doors are locked closed.
It won't latch.
Won't latch.
It will shut, you can shut the door, but there's nothing to latch it. It just comes right back open at you.
So if corn started or grain started flowing on it, it would open. I mean,
You gotta open the door and you're no longer curious because it come out. So
you can still fill the bin with it open, but you're gonna have a big pile on the ground and you're not gonna be standing underneath of it.
So when you put the inner door in and lock all those into place, and when you lock them into place, there is I'm going to call it a finger.
A finger.
A tab,
yeah.
yep. Tab's a much better word. A tab, that when you lock that last spot into place, the tab is now lined up with a specific slot on the outer door, correct?
Correct. So it goes through that, and that provides the catch for your latch.
That's right. And then the second thing that I really liked about the design is you and I had talked, John, about it's not just a small handle to try and turn. You got a lot of leverage on the bar that really makes sure this is going to stay locked, and then it'll make sure you've got leverage to open it back up if you have to.
Right. In the process of coming up with this door, throughout the development process, we'd had a couple others. We showed them to the dealers, and we thought we really had something nice. And they said, no, that's not. Go back to what you had. You had a nice door. We really liked your door. So we went back to the drawing board and ended up developing what we have today. So yeah, it was nice of those dealers to push us in to come up with something better.
Yeah. I will say, as a farmer, that style of door is so much better than the old ones with the rods that connect the door, because you have to have structural integrity on the door.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of hundreds of thousands of pounds on that, but now you've added the safety aspect to it. It's great.
And like I said, when we first started this conversation, John, this isn't normally how we do our What's Working in Ag segment. This is not a pitch to go out and buy one. This is informing our listeners that there's something to make working around your grain bins more safe.
Well, and that's always been one of our main goals, is the safety of the farmer, to keep him safe. So again, when we saw a need for something like this, we worked hard to try and develop something that we ended up with here. Yes.
And that door is standard on every bin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's no other option. This is what you get.
Right.
with
And
a
the nice
Sukup bin.
part about it is it will retrofit to any door we've had on our bin in the
I
past.
was going to ask that.
So simply by installing those fingers or the tabs.
Tabs. I like your word, tab.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
By installing them on the door, and then when you get a different outer door skin that has the holes in it, you can now make your older bin up to date with that. And it works both left or right hand swing.
Any
Oh,
brand?
really?
All the holes are in it.
Any brand?
No, it needs to be specific to our grain bin.
Needs to be Sukup.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. But once they see this door, once they look it up, because I assume they can find this door at sukup.com. Sukup?
Correct.
Yep. So if they go out to sukup.com and they like this door, they may just have to cut a hole in their bin to make the door fit.
Yeah.
I think it'd be nice if they just buy our bin.
Yeah.
Oh, I like this. John's got it figured out.
Yeah.
Does his job
Absolutely,
well.
Yeah. Just what was it the other day you were saying? We can go back and we can go to the bins a little bit. It's like what, $3-4 a bushel now, depending on what size.
Yep.
It used to be $1.50, $2. I remember yesterday you said it just takes 3 years to pay for it instead of 2 or 1 or whatever. It's like, well, that seems like, what else can you spend money on to get your money back as fast?
In that shorter time period.
Right.
You're correct.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody will, if they bought a bin a couple years ago and they priced one today, well, man, that's twice the money. And my comment to them was, as you said, so what, it'll take 3 years now to pay for it, or then a year and a half? But in all honesty, that is true. Storing grain will make you money.
Yep. And at this year, if you would have put soybeans in it, and if you sold beans out of the field to the co-op, and if you would have had a bin, you would have probably paid for the whole dang. You
could
would probably
have.
paid at 12, not 16.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So paid for, boom. done.
That's great. So that was a good What's Working in Ag segment. John, sukup.com is where they can find out more information about all the products, including the door.
Yes.
Awesome.
Safety is ingrained in Sukup.
I like that. That was a good
Absolutely.
French phrase.
Yeah.
I didn't come up with it. That's what they're claiming.
I like it. No, that's great. So listeners, that was our What's Working in Ag segment. Let's move on to our next topic. They're minimizing risks on your farm, helping you improve your yields, and increasing your profit margins. In today's farming operations, the data is the key to achieving all of this, Dave.
It's no secret that data has been helping more and more farmers gain ground in their operation. And there's no better way to manage all of that data than through John Deere's Operations Center. As a leading farm management platform, John Deere is constantly and continuously fine-tuning the features in Operations Center to make it easier, faster for you to analyze all of that farm data.
Yeah, and within that Operations Center, you can collect and analyze all of your machine, field, and crop data year after year, so you can make those data-driven decisions for your operation. You can set up field instructions for your machine operators, then push those instructions directly to that in-cab display straight from that Operations Center. Then your operators don't have to enter this information when they get to the field.
That is so cool. And with near real-time monitoring with the Operations Center, you can track the machine performance, the field work, and stay ahead of all the logistics to ensure the right work is being done at the right time. With all that yield data in Operations Center, you can analyze your total farm operations performance and make any changes for an even better next year.
And John Deere continues to make their Operations Center your go-to place to gain ground in your operation. It's free to use. Just create an account at operationscenter.deere.com or download the mobile apps from the Apple app or Google Play stores. You can also see your local John Deere dealer for more information. Thank you to John Deere for being a proud partner of the Farm for Profit podcast. Here we are, National Farm Machinery Show at the Sukup manufacturing booth, and we have discovered one of the display items here that is revolutionary. Corey, what did you say?
It looks unique. I've never seen one before.
Yeah, so we're going to talk here with Randy Marks of Sukup to learn more about it. So, Randy, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for Sukup.
All right. My name is Randy Marks, Sukup Manufacturing. I've worked for the company 21 years now. Had a background in engineering, came on board, worked in some of the development of some of our material handling and grain handling products. And right now I'm kind of heading up the whole material handling line as material handling sales director. So a lot of opportunity there and a lot of nice advancements in agriculture over the years.
Awesome. So we are here to talk about the Paddle Sweepway. And I said that correctly, Paddle Sweepway.
Yes.
We're combating what every farmer hates to do, and that is push the sweep around the bin.
Correct.
And we're talking a sweep auger. So for the listeners,
let's back up. Like let's say what we're doing here, right? Like what we're unloading grain out of a bin. We get down to the middle or down to the bottom.
Yep.
And all of a sudden the grain stops flowing.
Yep.
Right? And conventional, you have what would you call an auger sweep, right? That you set in the middle of the bin, or it's in there already, and it goes around. It's very dangerous, but it's a heck of a lot better.
So that's an auger that is pulling grain from the outside of the bin to the center sump.
Yes.
Yep.
And
Or you could shovel it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a lot better than a shovel. And usually guys are in the bin pushing this thing around, standing behind it, giving you opportunity for accidents.
Yeah.
Right?
Certainly.
So, which in Sukup sells, what do you call them?
Sweep auger.
Sweep auger.
Yeah.
But what is this Paddle Sweepway? What is that getting us to?
So that's actually getting us away from that auger that's so dangerous that you're talking about. That's getting us away from that and giving us something a lot safer, something that actually gets down all the way to the bottom of the floor. So if there's little kernels of grain, just that gets underneath that scraper on a traditional backboard of a sweep, this paddle sweep actually picks all that up and brings it into the center too. So instead of having to go back in with a shovel or even a large broom, you can probably go in there with a leaf blower, guys,
or a snow
clean
blower.
Yeah,
I've seen some of those videos.
But I like that. So we're no longer having an auger, and this is a sweep. So I assume it's a conveyor, or is it chain-driven, belt-driven?
It is a chain-driven. That's a good question. It's a chain-driven sweep. So there's rubber paddles mounted onto a chain, sprockets on two ends. It drags across that perforated grain bin floor. We do have a commercial version, too, that you can use just even on concrete, because you'll get a lot of the commercial market uses tunnel aeration. So it's a little different than a grain bin floor, fully perforated all the way across the bin. And we've got people that use them in there. We've actually, that's where we kind of invented this whole product line, was from the commercial market. And with the OSHA laws and the zero entry laws out there not allowing people to get into the grain bins, they said we need to have a better sweep that'll get everything out so we don't have to put people in there.
So this is a fixed, it stays in there all the time then?
Correct. Yes, it's always in there. We've got a couple different versions, like I said. So some that are all electrically driven. We've got an HMI screen with VFDs that control the motor and the speeds of both the chain and the pushers that advance them around the bin. Or you can get into this Paddle Sweepway that we see more on the farm that retrofits onto all of our existing Auger Sweepways that we have out there today.
So if you had a regular Auger Sweepway and you didn't get in the bin, there would probably be, 8 inches, 10 inches of grain left after that?
It's very potential that you'll have that much. It really depends on, the grain condition, when you start sweeping. And then if you leave it go around the bin once or twice, a lot of guys, they don't want it to go around a couple times. They want it to go around once and be done. And when you have a one sweep pass, you're going to get avalanching just like you would, on a snow mountain. You're going to get some avalanching, and that's going to come over that backboard and not get picked up. So you usually, traditionally, you always want to sweep to go around a couple of times to make sure it gets everything picked up off the floor. And with the paddle sweep, it does just that. It picks it all up. If you leave an auger sweep go around a second time, you're probably going to have an inch or two of grain for sure that's going to be underneath this. Yeah.
So then you still have to get in the bin.
Correct.
A lot of labor, a lot of shoveling, a lot of brooming. Yeah, it's not good.
Tanner, I wish you had your computer. We'd Google how many people have been injured by a sweep auger. I bet there's statistics out there.
So I'm watching the video across the booth now of it running. So what material are the paddles made out of?
So the paddles are made out of just a rubber belting, just like you would see in a traditional leg belting, a bucket elevator on a farm. On the commercial side, we've got a UHMW paddle that we can put on, that we usually put on like every maybe 10 paddles. And what that does is it's serrated, so it goes along that floor, drags along the floor. And then if you've got some out of condition grain or some areas where you've had some trouble or some moisture getting in, it breaks that up and allows those rubber paddles to pick that up and get it out of there.
This is new, right? Last couple years?
Yeah, definitely. For us, this is, like I said, the commercial market, we probably started about 4 or 5 years ago, and then we've just advanced all the way to the farm.
Do you guys expect the life to be similar to a auger sweep?
I would say it's going to be similar or even maybe a little bit better with some of the components in there. Augers, obviously, as that auger is spinning in the grain, you're wearing that auger out here. The only thing really wearing out that sweep is the floor. Because it's dragging on the floor, the grain really isn't going to wear it out. So
I imagine you can replace things that, there's wearable parts.
Yeah, the paddles are all a bolt-on rubber paddle, so you pull some bolts out, you can replace them. If you're sweeping that bin out once a year, I would say longevity-wise, this thing's going to last 10 to 20 years, and you're not probably going to have to touch it. Now, if you're sweeping it out on a lot more consistent basis, obviously that's going to affect that time frame.
Sure. When we're looking at this across the entire show, if I walked around and looked at other vendors here, is anybody else have a sweepway like this, a paddle sweepway, or is this one of a kind?
Well, there are some competitors out there that do have something similar to this, but if you look at the way ours is designed, you look at kind of especially that head section, the section that sits in the center of it, that has got some bars in there to help break up grain that's out of condition that maybe flows down, which none of our competition has. It also sits completely horizontal with the floor. I know some of our competitors, they put a bend section in there and they kind of rise up because they weren't able to take their original power sweep and design around it like we were able to. Right. So we've got some nice patented features on there with that center section. Also with the drive section, we've got a 60-to-1 gearbox out there on the end with a foam-filled rubber pneumatic tire that pushes this around the bin, so it's not sitting out there and just spinning its wheels off. It's advancing. It does a very nice job. If you look at the video here at the National Farm Machinery Show, you'll see it, and you can see how slow that tire is going, and it lasts. It's going to last a long time.
So Corey, I'm hearing safety, maybe time saving. Is there, Randy? Is there any other features of why I would want this product? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer on the safety side, but sometimes people don't have enough money for the safety side. But I'm sure there's other features to it.
Well, we all live in this world now where labor is very hard to come by, right? I hear it every day. It affects all of our lives, even with, you're getting your products from Amazon half the time or delayed anymore, right? So with this sweep, it saves a lot on the labor side. You can't find people to go in those bins and sweep them out. So this is a tool that you can use. You don't need that labor.
And I think the average age of farmers is 58 or 60,
climbing.
And climbing. So, they can't get in there and do that work like they used to.
So now let's talk cost, because cost is either the first thing you talk about or the last thing you talk about, and we kind of saved it to the end. So you're going to set up a new bin, you're going to put everything together, and now you got to the sweep portion of filling out the order form. Are we looking at a significant cost difference between a traditional sweep auger, or how are we comparing?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, obviously, if you look at this thing, it's built very robustly. It's going to last a long time, but it is going to be about double the cost of a traditional auger sweep.
I honestly expected it to be more than that.
Yeah.
By the amount of benefits that have been described and being able to see it run in person, I was expecting a larger gap.
What's that save in labor? What's that save in the safety aspect? One lost leg, one lost life. You can't put a price on safety.
Well, I know there's a lot of guys that are attending this show that if they didn't have to pick up a shovel, it would be worth a lot.
Yeah, your doctor bills, for a bad back.
Corey, I tell you what, you hit the nail on the head there. I get a lot of guys that come in and I joke about that. I said, they said, well, what's the cost? I said, well, it's going to be a lot cheaper than your back surgery is going to be.
Yeah.
Chiropractor trips, absolutely.
And my dad is that guy. I mean, he's the bionic man. He's had 2 back surgeries, 2 knee replacements, shoulders. It's tough.
Yeah. So the last question I've got, and then guys, if you got anything else, otherwise we can wrap it up, is I've got an existing bin, and I'm sick and tired of chasing my sweep around and having to shovel. Can I put a Sweepway, a Paddle Sweepway, in an existing bin?
That's a great question, and the answer is yes, you can. If you've got any Sukup power sweep that you have out there today is retrofittable to this new Paddle Sweepway. If you get into some of the other brands out there, we do have an option, where you can even take like an old tube and well system if you are willing to redo that center area. We've got a version that has a gearbox and a C-face motor attached to it. You will have to run an extension cord into the bin to empty it out, but it's still something that is retrofittable.
Well, so you can drive it. So most of the time when these guys they call power sweeps, right? They're the ones that stay in the bin. It's driven from the outside, correct?
Correct. Traditional power sweeps, the motor that drives your unload traditionally drives that sweep through gearboxes.
Yep.
That's almost how they all work.
Yep.
Ours is no different. And then you take our backboard and auger off, and you put this Paddle Sweepway on ours. It'll bolt right on. You do have to modify the shaft coming out a little bit, but it'll bolt right on there, and then you're up and running.
So it's zero entry after you, but plug it in.
There you go. That's right.
That's true. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, good. We covered a lot around a sweep, and who'd have thought that there'd be so much value in advancing technology and finding a safer solution to the job that nobody likes doing, especially if you waited until it got too hot out.
Oh, I got a question.
Fire it.
Is there any capacity change? Like, can you load just as fast with the Paddle Sweepway?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question too, Corey. We've got gears driven off of that gearbox, and depending on what you have for an unload in there, we can kind of play with the speed of that sweep, so we can match whatever you've got, whether it's an 8-inch system, a 10-inch system, maybe you got a drag conveyor. We can go anywhere from 2,000 bushel an hour up to probably close to 5,000 bushel an hour.
That sounds like it might need a brain box then. So you got a computer on this thing?
Well, no, we don't have not on the farm Paddle Sweepway, we don't. But when we get into the commercial one, yes, we do. We've got the VFDs in there. We got that HMI in there that I talked about, and you can go in there and you can slow things down, speed things up, so you're not overfilling your reclaim.
Yep. One aspect to safety too, and not being in the bin. So grain dust is very flammable. I've heard people taking leaf blowers, gas leaf blowers, snow blowers, things like that, trying to be efficient and find new ways to do it. It's like combustible engines in there probably shouldn't be in the bin, especially in a closed space.
Correct. Yes, that's exactly right.
So that's another safety aspect to it that a lot of people don't think about.
Yeah, no kidding. And you sell safety, or there's a slogan. What is that? The motto?
The motto is safety is ingrained at Sukup Manufacturing.
Yeah, and I think this is pretty good evidence of that as well. So, Randy, we appreciate you spending time on the mics with us. It's really cool to see it in operation. So I'd encourage you listeners to look it up. I'm sure there's YouTube videos out there that you can take a look at, or go to sukup.com. If you got any questions, reach out, and I'm sure Randy can help you out.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
Thanks, Randy.
And we're back here at the Sukup Trade Show booth here at the National Farm Machinery Show. I got Tanner, Corey. How you doing?
Hey, we're doing good this morning. We're ready to rock and roll.
Yep, we are right on time.
We are. And we have a wonderful guest with us from Sukup. We have Carrie Hartwig with us. Welcome, Carrie.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you.
Why don't you go ahead and share with our listeners a little bit about what you do for Sukup and a little bit about your background?
Well, I'm the dryer sales director for Sukup. Been working here for 23, 24 years, so quite a while. Started in engineering and then moved to dryers. So been involved in dryers since the beginning. They started dryers in '98, with some new ideas, and have moved forward and expanded the product line considerably since. So.
Well, Corey, I bet you can't guess what we're going to talk about.
Dryers?
Probably dryers.
I have one question. Did you go to Iowa State?
I did.
He said engineering, so I was like, well, it's one of the best engineering schools in the nation. So
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start us off. What's basic? What is the purpose of a grain dryer?
Well, basically to get grain in condition so we can store it. So it all kind of leads into the storage and being able to do this on farm and control when we can sell our crops. So hugely opens up what we can do for marketing. I mean, there's the obvious savings of drying for a lower cost on farm versus paying commercial storage. But conditioning your grain so that you can keep it for those later months, for higher prices is a big deal.
Yeah, and as a farmer, I kind of see it as a logistical thing too, right? Not only are you saving money because in-town commercial drying can pay, 4 or 5 cents per point per bushel to dry it, you can probably do it for a quarter of that, and also you don't have to go wait in line at the co-op or the grain elevator during harvest, and you can go home and do it.
Yeah, exactly. We hear that a lot. Yep.
Puts you a lot more in control, so it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let me interject here a second. Are there different types of dryers? I guess I see that people take grain to the co-op, but on the farm at home, everybody's got grain bins. For our listeners that might not know, what are different types of dryers?
So Sukup actually started with stirring machines and drying in bin, and then now we talk more about dryers being freestanding, out of bin, type equipment. So we started with what's called a cross flow dryer, a screen dryer. And the big idea that was had by Sukup was, hey, since they push hot air from the inside out, the grain near the inside gets hotter, dries faster, tends to be over-dried, and the grain near the outside of the dryer, just the opposite, is under-dried. So they had the idea, hey, we need to accelerate that grain on the inside, and came up with a quad metering roll system that was able to do that and give better quality grain. So that's where it started. And then we ended up getting into tower dryers, which is kind of the same concept. They're screen dryers, cross-flow style. But that gets you into the commercial market, the large rocket-looking dryers we see at the commercial sites, and much bigger capacities. And then in much more recent times, we've merged over into the mixed flow style of dryers, the ones with the triangles on them. And they have some big advantages of giving you better grain quality, burning less fuel, taking less electricity to do that. And we combine that style of drying, better grain quality, with the vacuum cooling from the tower dryer world, where we recover heat as we cool the grain, and married those two concepts together and gave us a really unique product that's just kind of taken off in sales for us.
Wow, that's a lot.
I was kind of thinking that.
I was like, man, okay, let's go back. What do we call that type at Sukup, that type of stirring, drying?
Our official name for the product is the faster stirring machine.
Okay. Got it. Perfect.
There's some pretty funny stuff out there, along the lines of, back in the day, and I've had the problem with dealing with some of the older styles.
Yeah.
Maybe not your brand, and they are a pain in the butt.
And we hear that, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, but you have to keep in mind this was 60s technology,
cheap.
and the harvest rate has changed a lot. A lot of things have changed since then.
So for perspective, how long does it take to? We're starting with just that style bin. That style bin where we're trying to dry the whole bin at one batch. How long does that take to dry the whole bin?
Well, that depends on how much moisture we're taking out, what kind of temperature we're running, what the bin size is, and that. But you could be 1 to 3 days worth of heat, and then you got to cool it and then transfer it and start over.
Okay.
So you're talking, if that's your only way of drying,
That's the way I grew up.
right? And that's I know people that still do that. You fill that bin up, you're done. But they probably have a 8, 12, 16 row head now. They could fill that up by noon.
Yeah,
Or faster.
Yeah.
Because those bins aren't typically very large.
exactly. It's changed so much. So
So that draws us into, we have to do something better that gives us more capacity.
Faster.
Yeah.
More
so
efficient.
So what was the next step?
So then the cross flow or basket type dryer with screens on it, it was kind of the next thing, and it still fits a lot of operations. I mean, typically those are going to be dump hot dryers, cool in the bin. So they got to be bins that are sized so that they have enough airflow to be able to cool. So we can't go too high in height. We got to make sure we got floors in them, and then the fans have to be sized with the right amount of air. So a little bit of logistics have to happen there.
And that's some engineering that goes into that
Yeah.
too, right? Like you're probably you guys got some big fans that sometimes you have to have multiple fans on these bins to cool.
Absolutely, and then we've got software charts, everything, so you can size and make sure things fit together.
And you're talking about sizing, Corey. You might be able to allude to this. I'm guessing, if I do X amount of bushels per year, and I'm looking at your product, I'm probably going to size this for 10 years down the road because 10 years ago I didn't farm nearly as much as I do today.
That's true, but it's hard to figure exactly where we're going to be. It seems like every 10 years is a pretty big surprise how far we actually came. So it is a great thing to consider, but it's also got to work for today too. So that's a tough balance to hit.
It is.
It's a bet on yourself that you're going to be around,
Right. Yep.
and the farm's still going to be there, and that you're going to grow, and cost, right? Because obviously, margins are usually pretty tight, and you have to find that tipping point of, can I invest that far out?
Yeah.
But you almost need to, because you're going to be cussing yourself when you need to do it 10 years down the road.
And that's a lot of these systems as they're getting designed, people are looking, well, how can I step into it? I can't bite it all off in 1 year. So trying to figure out how we can do that and plan for that is a big part of this too.
Can we just expand it and make it a little bit longer, a little bit longer, a little bit longer?
well, now when you're building a new bin site, yes, but back in the day, it was just kind of like, oh, put a bin there and put a bin there, and now you're trying to retrofit, like say a lot of on-farm type.
And we're seeing more and more guys abandon that and start a new site where they can, more plan for the future. So
we are in that exact situation of, the bin site's perfectly fine. We have 150,000 bushel on site in like 8 different bins, they're scattered around. It's like, but we can't abandon it and go somewhere else, but it should be nice.
Yeah.
Yep. So the next step up then, so from that, you said crossover and basket style?
Yeah, cross flow. And we're talking about the air moves across the grain basically at 90 degrees.
So then what would be the next step up?
Well, then we moved into tower dryers, and it's the same style of dryer as far as air moving across the grain with screens, but just allows us to get a lot bigger capacity. It really lends itself to heat-cool type operations. These are the ones you see mostly in commercial sites, large farms as well, but kind of the number one seller in commercial sites and can get big capacity.
This would be like the circular ones that are really tall.
Yeah.
Grain goes into the top and goes down the outsides.
Yep.
And it's heated from the center.
Yep. Fans and heaters are on the inside.
And then at the bottom, it's actually sucking cold air through the grain to cool it.
Yep.
So you don't have to cool in the bin.
That's a huge thing with those is that cooling being a vacuum, and as we cool the grain, it warms the air, and we recycle the heat out of that air and use it.
So sounds pretty efficient.
Exactly. Yes.
That's the style of dryer that we have.
Yeah. Good. So then now we get to what you talked about as combining a lot of the technologies, and that's your mixed flow dryer system.
Yeah, so the mixed flows are the ones with the triangles that we all see on the side.
Yep.
And the thing on that is making sure we understand how the air moves through the ducts and through the dryer itself. The triangles we see on the outside are exhaust ducts, and there's an equal number of intake ducts that you can't see from the outside. And that's what allows the air to get across the dryer. Those dryers hold about twice as much grain and have half the airflow per bushel. So they're excellent on grain quality because every kernel's in there twice as long. We spend more time drying it and just put a lot more kernels in there.
And it sounds like it's a more even, like all the kernels get the same heat.
Exactly.
Right?
Those ducts distribute the hot air evenly across the whole column.
Wow. So is that even more efficient?
It is, and they also run less airflow per bushel. So it's about half the air, but twice as many bushels. So each kernel takes longer to dry, easier on the grain.
And Kerry, this isn't new, is it? I mean, weren't they
absolutely
doing
not.
this in like the 70s?
Yeah, or before. Yeah,
Okay.
So it's an old concept. And so Sukup put a twist on that. We said, hey, we love this concept for drying. We love the efficiency, the grain quality of it. But most of these big sites need to be able to cool the grain too.
Mm-hmm.
And the cooling aspect of the tower dryers we talked about with the vacuum cooling and heat recovery is huge. So we combine those two ideas, put them together, and it's just been an excellent product.
So what is something, I've seen other manufacturers with the same style setup. What's something that Sukup does better? What's your flavor on that?
Secret sauce.
Yeah, the number one thing would be that vacuum cooling. Everybody else does pressure cooling.
And the
where
recapture.
Yeah,
Yep.
the recapturing of the heat and recycling, reusing it.
Yeah. Which I see that being a huge advantage. You know, you talk about maybe being a small item, but it's a huge advantage for efficiency. But then, just like you said, it's a very consistent way to maintain the quality of the grain.
Exactly right. I mean, 20 years ago, a lot of guys, we weren't talking about fuel efficiency in that. You know, now that's one of the first things that we talk about. So being able to recycle and recover that heat's a really big part.
So when I think of like a heater in a house, they're like 97% efficient. Do you guys have an efficiency label you smack on each style dryer? That
Get money back from your electrical provider.
It doesn't have the yellow sticker
All right,
on
it doesn't have the yellow sticker.
There's a lot of variables in that.
Okay,
I mean,
fair
every
enough.
year, you know, the corn dries harder and easier. Same hybrid, same moisture every year, so it's pretty hard to do that.
Yeah, temperature.
It does seem like the quality of the corn has a lot to do with how fast you run the dryer, how fast you can get bushels through. What's the range that we can get in some of these new dryers from like 500 bushel an hour to up to?
Well, our
what?
mixed flows will run about 700 bushel an hour, dump and cool at 5 points, up to about 4,000 bushel an hour is the range. So it fits a lot of the medium to large farmers, right now.
Dave, to put that in perspective, my combine can't combine 4,000 bushels an hour.
You just don't try hard enough.
I'm sure we can buy you a new one.
So we need two or next 9. I don't know.
And the other thing to think about, I mean, the dryer can run 24 hours a day.
Yep.
So, that comes back into sizing the systems, making sure our wet bins are big enough so that can happen.
Now, if you're running 24 hours a day, there's heat, there's fire, there's mechanical moving parts. Surely somebody's monitoring this.
And that's kind of another thing, the labor side of this that we talk about on all aspects of agriculture and everything now is a big part. So one thing that happens a lot is, hey, can I see this from my phone? Can I monitor it from my iPad or whatever? And absolutely you can do that. If we can get internet to the dryer, we can put it on any remote device, and you can monitor it. You can make changes. You can look at performance. I mean, that's just a huge part of it.
Yeah, the technology has come so far that you're talking about. I remember as a kid, Dad would have to adjust things manually, heat and flow.
Yep.
Right, and then you'd have to sample, and you'd have to wait a while to make sure you get a good sample. And now we have things that are actually monitoring the moisture coming out of the dryer, and we'll make adjustments on the fly.
We're looking at temperature of the grain. We're looking at moisture of the grain, comparing that to what you need, and making adjustments all the time.
Does Sukup have like a proprietary brain on these dryers?
Yeah,
themselves?
I mean, we do all our software in-house. I'll have our own software engineers, 100% PLC based, which is extremely rugged, controls, which is needed on a grain dryer.
Yeah.
So it really allows us, as we've developed these and move forward, we can move so much faster doing that ourselves rather than depending on somebody else.
Sounds like hitting the easy button. Set it and forget it, right?
But don't forget it.
Don't forget it. Don't forget.
Don't forget it. So someone walks into the booth, and they're clearly looking at the dryers that we have on display to look at. How do you approach the conversation with somebody, if you don't know what they're looking for? So how could someone listen to this know what to start considering first when they're looking at making a decision?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to focus 100% on mixed flow because we wouldn't offer the others if there wasn't demand and need for them.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on how many bushels are we drying. Do you want to dump hot and cool in the bin, which is going to save you money on the dryer and the equipment up front? Are you looking at bins that are so big that we can't cool in the bin and we need a heat cool dryer? That's a big part of it. The mixed flow dryers can be a little dirtier with bees wings in that, so how close are you to city limits? That could be a question. A lot of different factors like that, but bushel an hour, heat versus cool, a lot of those things that we can sort out. Hey, here's a couple options that might work for you.
What is a bin size that's too big to cool in the bin?
These 48, 9-10 ring bins, 50, 60,000 bushels, that's kind of the top end.
Okay.
And it's more the depth, the height, because as we add height or depth to grain, the pressure goes up and we can't push as much airflow through it. So
That's interesting.
I don't know if I would have considered that as height being, but after you described it, it makes more sense.
Yeah. Starts from the bottom, has to work its
That's
way
why
to the top.
he's an engineer.
That's,
Kinda.
yep, he's got it. I just talk on the
Very smart
microphone.
people. Very.
We got smart people there. I know who to ask.
Yeah, there you go.
So with that being most of the conversation here, did we miss anything? Is there anything else you'd like to cover as we talk about dryers today?
Not really, other than the payback has been really great on them in the last 5 years. We're seeing that, and the other thing too, even though we've had a couple of years where it hasn't been the wettest crop, once guys have dryers, they start earlier, they get done earlier. People talk about the yield loss by leaving it dry in the field. More and more people feel that's real, and when you have a dryer that's big and capable of it, you tend to start earlier and you get done earlier too.
So I have a crazy question, maybe even a dumb question. Do they make mobile dryers that you could take from bin site to bin site that you could move around?
Yeah, I mean, we would call like our screen basket type dryers portable, but it generally doesn't work. Usually we do have guys that have tried that and set up different sites, and they generally end up finding it's easier to haul grain than it is to move a dryer. By the time you look at the electric and the fuel and the fill and takeaway equipment, not that it can't be done, but it often isn't.
Right.
So how many, if I'm looking at a new site, maybe you're Corey and we're going to take down Corey's grain bins and we're going to put up a whole new site. How many acres, if acres or square feet, does somebody need to make an efficient grain setup?
Well, it all depends on what setup that you're looking at, and I'm not going to give you a specific answer because it's a hard one. But what I would say is, hey, we have a great network of dealers, and that's what they do. They come out and meet with you, either a dealer and or our sales reps with them, and we kind of go through, hey, what do you want? What do you want to use with what you got? Existing equipment. How's your truck flow going to work? Drainage, electric, fuel. Hard surface road's great if you can get it.
Right.
So those are the things to think about.
I would say you're much better off than trying to retrofit, Dave. Like they could probably do it in a pretty small footprint. With the technology
I think
got.
with a newer setup, a setup like yours where you already have grain bins out there. So I'm guessing you guys have couplers, adapters, et cetera, that will work with other grain bin systems that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too, I talk guys that are looking at this, talk to everybody you can. Talk to your neighbors, talk to everybody that's put up new systems. They'll give you pointers. They'll tell you what works great, and they'll tell you what they wish they would have done different. Yeah.
I was just thinking that.
As you're, I'm thinking technology. I'm looking at an app on a phone, and I'm looking at a whole computer system in front of me here as we're talking. Listeners, you can't see it, but it's pretty fancy. And as I'm thinking of that, I'm thinking firmware, hardware. There's got to be updates to this stuff. Does Sukup stand behind all that? Do you guys give push free updates on that?
Absolutely, yeah. Our software is all free. We post it on Sukup.com. You don't need password or anything to get to it. We also have instructions on how to do it. We've got YouTube videos that demonstrate how to download it, how to put it in your dryer. So yeah, it's all there.
Nice. Well, boys, I think we covered about everything here, but what we didn't cover is you introduced yourself as having a very long career at Sukup. So what's your favorite part about working at Sukup? Why are you still hanging around?
Well, I like the family. I like working for a family-owned company. I like what we do. We've got some great people there, and I really like visiting with our dealers and our customers out there. Getting the chance to do that is my favorite part.
Awesome. So that's Kerry Hartwig, Sukup Manufacturing. And if you got a dryer question, that's the guy to go reach out to. So either ring you up, I assume, call the general line, or go to sukup.com.
Yep.
And check them out.
I like that you guys still sell the stir system, right?
A surprising amount of them, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's worldwide. It's not just the Midwest.
It's a cheap way to do it, especially like if you have a field across the county and you put just a single bin there to hold that field.
Right.
Yeah, it's efficient. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, great. I think we got her covered. We appreciate all the information that you shared with us, Kerry. And listeners, until next time, have a good one.
Remember, if you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long.